preserved my youth. Not only did it capture my goals, it told me the truth.
Conversate for a few, cause it a few.
I let them know we missing you. The love is unconditional.
Wave your hands across the land if we family.
We got a world premiere right here, now get lost.
So off we go, let the trumpets blow. And hold on, because the driver of the mission is a pro.
All right. Another episode of Conversate with Us Radio. Conversate stands for communicate, converse, and relate. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Conversate with Us. You can also follow us on YouTube. Make sure you leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, share the show. We're doing a lot of good information of exposing positive things that are going on in the Black community. We want to make sure we spread the word about everything that we're doing. So today we're talking about Black authors, brothers who write. So I have with me today good brother Joe Harris, an aspiring writer out of Philadelphia. Joe, what's up with you, brother?
How you doing, man? I'm good.
Doing good. I got Mr. Michael Dock out of ATL, well, I should say out of Georgia. Mr. Michael Dock, also known as the Wednesday Gentleman. You can follow his blog, The Wednesday Gentleman, on Facebook. And I have my fraternity brother, good brother Darrius Jerome Gourdine, author of several books about our fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. He also has his book series, The Assignment, which he is up close to book number 5. Is that correct, Darrius?
Yes, sir.
Close to book number 5. You can get all his books on Amazon, his website. I'm sure he'll be able to plug exactly where you can buy his books as well. So we have 4 writers. I've also written a book too, Mythbusters, Lessons from Active Black Fathers. But I wanted you brothers to come on here so we could talk about the process of writing and what you get out of it, because people love what y'all do. Darrius, I know people have talked about The Assignment, and everybody I know who has read the book talks about how supremely talented you are in writing.
Thank you.
Doc, we read your stuff every week. The Wednesday Gentleman, you share it with our Facebook group, and you share it on your blog, man. It's excellent writing. And we actually got Joe to put out and be vulnerable, put out some of his writing, man. And he did an excellent job. So, and you know,
good job, man.
I stay on Joe, man. Joe will tell the truth. Every now and again, I inbox Joe, because he's been talking about how he wants to be a writer. I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna put something out. So when you say it, I'm gonna hold you accountable. So about every few months, I hit him up.
Oh, you too?
Every few months, I hit him up and I say, "Hey, what's up with it?"
I'm in Joe's inbox. I'm in Joe's inbox too. Yeah,
I'm
in Joe's inbox too. Same thing.
You know, and that's what we have to do as brothers, man. Hold each other accountable. So, Darrius, man, I'll start with you, man. What made you want to get into writing, man, and what's your inspiration?
So, I've been writing all my life since I was a kid. You know, my first story, if you will, I was in 5th grade, and I had just saw the movie The Black Stallion, and so I wanted to write about horse stories. So I wrote a story on paper, and I gave it to my teacher so she could read it, and she wrote A+ on it, and I was devastated, because to me, that was my manuscript. You just ruined it, you know? But I honestly didn't know that you could go to college for writing. I didn't know that, because I remember I was at Howard, and one of my boys was telling me he was getting ready to go to grad school for writing, for journalism. And I was like, you're gonna learn how to write? Like, I didn't get that. And I didn't make the correlation that writing is actually a thing. It wasn't until I was in secondary school after Howard, I was in grad school, when I started really thinking about being a professional writer. And so it's something that was always in me, you know? I've been doing it for a very, very long time, from online stuff to print materials to whatever. And in terms of inspiration, my thing is this: I believe that God puts something in every single person, and whatever he puts in you is not for you to keep it inside of you. And I've always said that the largest library in the world is the graveyard, because there are books in a lot, which is why I keep pushing Joe. It's like there's a book in him. You saw what he just did last week in conVersate. He was just dropping nugget. And everybody's like, yo, that's great. It's good. It's whatever. Well, put it out, because if you don't, it's going to stay in here. So my goal is to put out 100 books before I die. That's my goal. I want to write 100 published books before I die, because that's how much is in me. You know what I mean? And what motivates me is when people read them. You said a minute ago, folks read my stuff and they're like, yo, that's good. When's the next one coming out? Well, that's what keeps me going. You know what I mean? When I get depressed or feel like I don't want to do it anymore, I just think about what somebody said when they read the last one. And I'm like, you know what? Let me get on it. Let me push through. And so that's what keeps me going, man.
That's good. Mike, what inspires you, man? What keeps you pushing, man?
Keeps me pushing. Just to piggyback on what my man has said already, I do love when people read it, get something out of it, because it is something that's in me. Normally, I write for my own mental health therapy. I may be dealing with something. The series that I just kind of finished was a work situation that I was dealing with, and I just needed to put it down how I felt about it. And so I found a way to do it and I put it out. So it helped me deal with the situation at hand. So it's therapeutic in a way. I never thought about 100 books. That's got my mind going, because I'm like, everything that you experience and things of that nature, I look at people and I watch people. My degree is in psychology, so I'm watching people and just analyzing things, and I'm always looking for ways to show people who live in different situations that we've never heard of before. How a person that has a bipolar disorder is, how they work with dating, or a person who deals with depression, how they deal with dating. And I normally deal with that and give those voices, or that anxiety, that mental health issue, a voice while I write. So that's always, that challenge is what drives me.
Yeah. And Joe, I mean, you haven't put anything out yet. I'm going to put it out there. 2023, we're going to have something out there, right? We have something in the ether from Joe Harris. We're going to bring him back on the show, and we're going to make a big to do about it, man. But what's your inspiration, man? Because I'll tell you this, I'm a big proponent of mental health, and I met with a therapist back when I was living in Houston, Black man. And he told me a story how he used to always say, I want to run a marathon. I want to run a marathon. And he said he used to say it because it sounded good to say, to tell people I want to run a marathon. But then pretty soon he realized that, man, I'm just talking. So he finally started to put it into motion. He started walking. He started jogging. He did a 5K. The next thing you know, he did a 10K. Then he did a half marathon. And then pretty soon he did the marathon. He actually put it into place. And I always kept that with me, because I used to tell people all the time, I want to write a book. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book about fatherhood. I'm going to write a book about fatherhood. People always be like, yeah, that's dope. That's dope. And I'll be honest with you, Darrius and, a couple other my fraternity brothers who are authors, I saw it and I was like, damn, they making it happen. I got to make it happen too. So by any means necessary, I drew that inspiration and I made it happen. So now I done messed up and told people, well, I think I'm gonna write another book. And somebody just asked me yesterday, hey, you still writing that book? And I was like, damn, I ain't even started. Why'd you have to remember? So Joe, what's driving you, man?
Okay, so I've always had a very vivid imagination. I've always, in my head, I've always thought of stories and all that. I was a different type of kid, so I always had stories in my head all the time. As I got older, it just started, I came more into myself, so I became more, social and all that. So I kind of put it to the back burner a little bit. But I'll be honest, I'll be real transparent and open here. My brother was going through some things, and I was trying to make him laugh. So I started putting these crazy stories on Facebook. I just started writing just ridiculous stories, just silly stuff that supposedly happened to me. It really wasn't happening, but I was like every couple of days or every week, I would put out just a story out there. And I realized that people really started, they started liking it. And of course, it was helping him. And that was the main goal for me, to help him, kind of get through his stuff. And that's why I started actually really putting my stuff out. And actually, he came to me, it's like, yo, you need to just write a book. And Marv, you met my brother.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he passed away. And that hit me hard. And now I'm getting back into listening to what he said to me and doing it for me and for him also. And that's my motivation. And again, I want to thank Darrius and Michael Doc, because I've talked to both of you, and you both have given me some good advice. And Marv, you know, I support. So yeah. So I appreciate that. But that's what got me started.
And I think it's a good thing. You know, I did meet your brother, man, and you know, rest in power to that brother. He was a good man from the brief time that I interacted with him.
Right.
But to Mike's point, it can be somewhat therapeutic.
It can.
It could be therapeutic. It could be cathartic. You getting it out on paper. I basically told my story. You know, my story as a father, something that I struggle with. You know, I struggled in, do I even want to become a father? And then once I became one, I struggled with, am I doing it right? Can I bounce back from these mistakes that I'm making? And I realized that, you know what, I can help people if I put everything out there. I put in my book, I put more of my mistakes than any success that people may have said that I had. But I feel like people can learn from your mistakes. People can learn from what you put on paper. Just like when Mike said, he's giving voices to the people who have anxiety or depression. It's important that I think that we put that out there. And I just hope that people are taking the time to actually read. But that's my next question. And I'll start with Mike. You primarily put your blog out on social media. And the thing that I worry about our society is we become like a real clickbait. Like you click on it and I'm going to spend 20, 30 seconds on it. And then I'm on to the next thing. And I wonder, are people still reading? Are people still investing the time into sitting down and reading what people are putting down? Like Darrius is putting out books, right? Are people still invested in reading like they used to? Or is it all just social media? Let's click and read it real quick and then move on to the next thing.
Well, for me, looking at the numbers, because I've gotten to the point now I really don't look at the numbers anymore, because it's more or less therapy for me. But when I started putting things out, people really weren't looking at it. So I was like, okay, let's try something different. So I just started changing up pictures, noticing that, you know, people will look at a picture and be like, oh, okay. And they'll click on it. So it started playing into that. Then I really started pushing it, the envelope, with characters having sex scenes. And that just kind of blew the doors off. Anytime that I write a sexual scene, women read it. Women read it. And they always think that I am the one that wants it. I love the brother getting back at, you know, his old boss and things like that, and blacks coming together. That's what I love writing about. But I also know who my audience is. And so I got to give them what they want, and that's what they want. So the numbers jive. So in between all of that, I try to have that underlying message of trying to bring blacks together by any means necessary. So even though they're seeing this, I'm hitting you with the uppercut, those body shots with black empowerment. So you're going to get it. You're going to feel it after a while. Like, oh, so this is what this is about. Yes, absolutely.
Man, and you know, I'm loving that you're doing that. Then we'll go to you, Darrius, because y'all know I'm big on the podcast lane. I had the Man Listen show. I have conVersate with Us, where I interview brothers like yourselves, different entrepreneurs. And then I also have CVAD, Conversate After Dark, which is, you know, after dark. You know, we talk about sex and things of that nature. It's funny how with my Man Listen show, when we're talking about Black empowerment, this show right here, we do decent numbers, right? But you got to work for it. You got to advertise, you got to market, which, you know, you have to do with anything else. But that After Dark podcast, It's a lot lighter load to try to market that, to get people to click and listen to it. And I like what you said when you said, listen, I'm sliding a little bit of medicine in there as well, right? Because the R&B singer Tank, he has his podcast. Actually, he was on the Drink Champs with Nori. And he mentioned, he said, you know what? They're trying to kill R&B. They're trying to kill R&B because they don't want our love. They don't want Black people loving one another. Because our love is revolutionary. Our love is power when we love one another. So they rather promote us killing one another, us destroying one another, and not us loving one another. So that goes right along with what you said, brother. That's dope, man. But Darrius, you managed to be successful in writing books and finding your audience and getting people to, you know, consistently follow you, man. What game plan do you follow, man, to make to keep that going?
A lot of it is the marketing of it. You know, in what I do, I look at the audience that I'm writing for. You know, if it's for the fraternity, that's one completely different audience than something else that I'm doing. So I have to think about, you know, I try to sell things that I would buy, right? Like, would I read this book if I saw it on the shelf? If my answer is no, then I'm not going to write this book. So I consider my audience, and I consider that, you know, a lot of my audience is Black men, right? If it's a fraternity book, that's Black men. So the stigma has always been that Black people don't read, specifically Black men don't read. I want to kill that you know, that stereotype. So what I did with the fraternity, for example, I tried not to write those books too long, but I tried to make them engaging, right? So you kind of want to keep turning the page because, like, okay, what happens next? Oh, wow, I didn't know. Oh, what happens next? Ooh, what? And you keep doing this and then you're done, right? Well, what I found out I did 3 books on the fraternity, and they were all paperback novels, about 190 something pages each, not too bad, right? Well, over the years, brothers have asked me, why don't you do a hardbound book? And I would always decline because well, back in the day at least, the physics behind a hardbound book, that's not enough pages to justify that book. And then the cost would be so high, I would outprice myself when it came to the brothers. Well, a couple of years ago, one of my guys said to me, why don't you combine all 3 books into one? I had never thought about that. So I said, that's a good idea. And so in doing that, I combined all 3, and then I added breaks in them in between. That turned out to be a hardbound book of 700 pages. So it's this thick War and Peace looking like book, right? But it's beautifully made. And when I found, this is the point. Now when I go to conventions, I sell that faster than the other ones because brothers are like, I want to read that big one. Give me that big one. And so I'm trying to destroy this myth that we don't read because we do, right? And I'm glad you said earlier, Marv, about this whole conversation right here. This is like a barbershop conversation, right? We've all been to the barbershop. Barbershops in the Black community, that's our healing place for Black men. We can go there, we can be transparent, talk about sports, talk about women, talk about whatever. And everything is in the barbershop. You can talk about whatever you want in the barbershop. Old men, young men, you know, whatever, right? And so all those stories to take place while you're getting your haircut, that's a library. It's a library's worth of conversations, information, and transparency. It's just that nobody's typing it up. So my thing is, I want to type them up. And I want to market in such a way that you want to read it. And then when you start reading it, you can't put it down. I've had brothers tell me, man, I got your book at the convention. I figured I'd read it at the airport when I'm going home. I got on the plane landed. I didn't want to get off the plane. I'm sitting there reading the book. I didn't want to get off the plane. So that's how I write it. I write it so that you don't want to close it until it's finished. And then when brothers buy my books, and Marv, you know this, I'll ask them, take a picture with my book in your hand. Mm-hmm. And I'll post that. And so because the fraternity world is large but small, you'll see your boy, like, oh, it's my line brother. That's my cousin. That's my man holding the book. I got thousands of pictures of these dudes holding books, right? Once again, dispelling the myth that they don't read. And so I'm constantly marketing. I'm all over YouTube. I'm all over IG. I'm all over Facebook. I'm all over everywhere. I go to these conventions. The young boys see me. I saw you on YouTube. The old guys see me. I saw you on Facebook. You know, so constantly messaging, getting the information out, and whether it's the fraternity or whatever else I'm writing on, I'm hitting that audience constantly. I'm hitting. I might not get you to buy it on Wednesday, but if I hit you on Thursday and I hit you on Saturday, hit you on next Tuesday, you're gonna eventually jump in. And then once you're in, I got you. So I create fans for life, I create followers, and I create people who appreciate male content from a young-minded perspective. And I just try to dispel that myth that we don't read, because we honestly do.
So, Joe, bringing it back to you, and there's you dropped some jewels right there. You gave a game plan to a lot of people. I hope they picked that up. So when you talk, and all three of y'all write fiction, and there's a different mindset for me to write fiction. You know, I like to think that I have a good imagination, but you know, I look at Game of Thrones. You know, I watched the Game of Thrones TV show, and this dude, you know, writes these massive books, and he's created this whole world with different continents and different peoples and nationalities and magic and Dungeons and Dragons and all this stuff. And I said, what kind of mind can come up with that? So I know it has to be a process in order to put pen to paper. So I'm gonna go around the horn. I'm gonna start with Joe, man. Joe, what process do you use when you're like, hey man, I need to go ahead and write and start working on making this book a reality?
So, okay, so for me, I've actually got 3 things that I'm working on now that are just out there. For me, it's just, I will see or hear something, just random conversations, or I see something on TV, and it will give me an idea for a story. And after I get that idea, in my mind, I try to work it out from beginning to end. This is what happens. This is why it happened. This is the middle. And then here's the climax. And once I have it in my head, how things are going to begin and end, then I start writing it. That gets a little hard for me sometimes, because you have what you want, but just getting the words down and getting the idea out, that becomes a little hard. I was writing something, and I let someone read it, and they told me that it was too detailed. I was delving too deep into the details. I need to pull it back. So I started doing that. So I actually had to start rewriting what I was doing. And I read it again, and I was like, yeah, I'm a little too detailed in this. I need to pull it back, make it a little bit easier to read and a little bit easier to write for me, because I was bogging myself down so bad. I couldn't continue writing because I had too much details. And if I would have kept going with that, I would have had to keep the details as you know, as they were. So I had to pull it back. So it's a process where I'll start, and then I have to pull it back a little bit and start over. So that's pretty much it. And that's where I get bogged down sometimes, but I realize that if I want to put out something quality, that's what I have to do. That's where I am.
Doc?
Well, my process is a little similar to Joe. I will hear an idea, might be something from Strawberry Letter. I think I'm like, oh, I can turn that into a story. Or I hear me and my lady are having a conversation. I'm gonna turn that into a story. I will let my mind wrap around it, as far as like how I want to go or how I want to spend it. I might spend a day, like normally when I work out or sit in the sauna, I'm working out things. Then on a Sunday or Monday, I write down a rough draft. Tuesday, I'm writing the second draft. Wednesday, I am writing the final draft and I'm putting it out.
Okay.
So everything that we learned in school, having the ideal, flushing it out, that whole thing. And I also have a person that comes behind to make sure that some of my writing is not too radical. Because again, I know who my audience is. So some of the things that I like may be a turn off. So I have that voice to say, no, can't do that. Need to take that out. And I've gotten to the point where I don't mind that. When I initially started that process, I was like, who the fuck you think you are? I'm the one writing.
Right.
But I had to sit there and listen to what they were saying because this is my audience. So I write better now for my audience. Now I do for how it comes to be a book. I've just taken the collection of stories that I've written over the years and just compounded them. And they make a novel. That's just how it is. Don't ask me how it works. God takes care of that. It just magically comes together because whatever I'm doing, it just kind of flows like that. I just kind of, if it's something that I'm trying to get out, like this story about Marcus, I want to continue that. So I'm going to continue that. And so when I'm done with it, then I have a collection for a book. But everything is surrounding this main character called Eric Houston. So it's building itself. So I can step back and say, okay, I want this to go here. I want this to go here. This is a book. This is a book. This is a book.
And you know, it's funny that you said that you had somebody come behind you, because when Joe told me, he said somebody said he was writing too detailed, I got pissed off when Joe said that. I was like, man, why you let somebody, you know, dampen your voice, man? Write how you want to write. But then he said, well, you know, they were right. It was, you know, it wasn't practical, and you know, it did help me, you know, get more done. So that y'all dropping jewels today. So I'm hoping that, you know, we share this, and somebody else who wants to be a writer, or somebody who knows a young brother who wants to write, they're picking up what you guys are dropping, you know. So Darrius, your process, how's it work for you?
Same thing that these brothers just said, Joe and Mike. Like I remember when I was sitting in my room when I was trying to write, and I would watch certain movies on TV because they would inspire me. And one of the movies I must have watched this movie 300 times, like literally, was the movie Hook, with Steven Spielberg took the Peter Pan story and, you know, and did it over. And the reason that movie inspired me is because I like to write things from a different perspective, right? Like, we all know the story of Peter Pan. He was a little boy, he's flying around, you know, whatever. But in the Steven Spielberg version, with, you know, Dustin Hoffman played Captain Hook and Robin Williams played Peter, Peter grows up and forgets who he is, which is not a part of our story. We didn't, in Neverland, you don't grow up. So because Peter leaves Neverland, he grows to become an adult, forgets who he is, has his own children, and then Captain Hook kidnaps his kids. So he has to go back to Neverland to get his kids back. But in order to do so, he has to remember how to fly, remember how to fight, remember how to crow, all these different things. So the Lost Boys teach him how to use his imagination, okay? I watch that movie every night because it's telling a story that we already know from a different angle. And so most of the books that I write story-wise, it's just that. It's a story that we already know, but it's told from a different angle. In terms of the fraternity, you ask most of the fraternity brothers about our founders, they can tell you their names, tell you their occupations, what they were about, X, Y, and Z. But the way that I told the story, same story you already know, I told it from a different angle. Because, and I'm just talking fraternity right now, we teach our guys coming into fraternity the names of the founders and what they did for a living, their occupations. But when they founded the fraternity, they were students, they didn't have occupations. So we all know who the adult guys are. This guy became an architect. This guy became an engineer. But what was he like when he was 17? When he was 16? That's the guy that I studied. That's the story I told. So I told it from a different angle. So I study Steven Spielberg because he's a master of taking what you already know and just turning it a little. And when you turn just a little bit, it makes something that's ordinary fascinating. You know what I mean? It really does. And so the assignment, I took one verse of the Bible and elaborated it into this crazy story that is now building upon itself because it keeps going and going and going. And now I just finished book 5, and book 6 is due out next year. So it's like, I didn't plan on doing 6 books. I didn't plan on doing 3. I plan on doing 1. But the story is alive, right? I'm following the story, trying to catch up to where the story is taking me, because I took something that we already know and I just turned it a little. So my motivation is looking at things that are told in a. You mentioned Game of Thrones, right? That's a perfect example. This dude is sitting around, coming up with this stuff. It's like, what are you smoking? To get these dragons and this, Harry Potter, same thing. But when you go deeper into it, what story wasn't crazy when Superman? When Superman first came, I mean, we all know Superman, right? It's like a no big deal at this point. But when it first came out, this guy is flying around, bullets can't hurt him, right? He's from a whole other planet, but this green rock will take him out. Like, who thought of that? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, who thought of that? When you think, who thought of that? A spider bites this kid, now he's flying around New York City like a spider. I mean, who thought of Spider-Man? So, like, when you think about these stories, somebody somewhere took something that we already know and just twisted it a little, and that's what I do. And that's what I think. I honestly believe that everybody has somewhat of an imagination to do something like that. What stops them from doing that, from tapping into that imagination, is usually fear. They're afraid that what they write won't be accepted. Folks won't like it. They won't buy it. They won't support it, or whatever, or they'll fall flat on their face. And fear keeps people from doing a lot of things, And so the first step to doing a book or doing anything out of your ordinary 9-to-5, whatever, is to conquer yourself. Get past your own whatever to do something, right? That's the first step.
I had I worked for this guy. He was my manager, and he and I ended up being pretty good friends, and we were polar opposites. He was Fox News Republican, Mormon from Utah, and we found common ground on certain things, right? We had a respect for one another. And he gave me something, and I kept it, and it's what made me, get over that fear that you talked about, Darrius. He said, don't let the pursuit of perfection get in the way of progress. Don't let the pursuit of perfection get in the way of progress. So you may put your book out, right? I know when I put my book out, I had the editor read it. I had, 2 different editors. I read it, then I put it out. And as soon as it went out, I went to page, whatever, and I said, damn, there's a mistake. All 3 of us missed it. But guess what? You know what I'm saying? My book was out. I was published. So if I could drop any drill on somebody today, it would be, don't let the pursuit of perfection get in the way of progress. Keep writing, put it out. You can always go back and change it. You can always go back and edit it. But put it out there. Put it out there. So we're going to start off with Doc. Doc, where can they find your writing, man?
You can find me right now on Facebook, Instagram under the Wednesday Gentleman. You can go to the fan page and find it. You can go to Instagram and find it. But the stories primarily are on the fan page, and they will be there every Wednesday. Right now, we're doing the Wednesday Rewind as we head toward the holidays. And I am actually meeting with a strategist as we get ready to launch the novels. So we'll see what January will bring.
All right. Darrius, I know you got a long list of where they can find your stuff. Where can they find it?
I was gonna say, easiest way to just go to Amazon. Just go to Amazon, search my name, Darrius Jerome Gourdine. All my stuff is there. But in terms of, because I have individual websites for all my stuff. So for the alphas, it's easy to remember. It's Jules1906.com. For the assignment, it is IamAssigned.com. For Epsilon Psi Story, it's eSciStory.com. But like I said, the easiest way to go, everything is on Amazon. So the easiest way to find my stuff, go to Amazon.com, put in my name, you'll see all my books. I got 14 books right now. I got 86 to go. So they're all on Amazon.
Brother, you inspired me because I was lacking on, I was gonna write one more book. You talking about you got 86 to go, so I ain't got no excuse. But I'm gonna put a challenge out. 2 challenges. Number 1, I want to implore people to go to Darrius's website and buy the book directly from him. I want you to go, when Doc puts his book out, go to his website, buy it directly from him. When Joe puts his book out, buy it directly from him. Amazon's a wonderful thing. People can just, they can just lay it in the bed, they can put it in the cart, And with Prime, they can have it within a few hours or the next day. But there's a cost to that. There's a cost to that, right?
That's correct.
And
Yep.
a lot of people talk about, oh, you writing books, you're making big money on books. You can make money on books, but there ain't a whole lot of money to be made on books. A lot of your authors, they're doing it for the love. They're doing it to enlighten people. They're doing it because they love writing. They want to give their gift to the world. So don't think that, oh man, they're making all this money. Nah, it's, it's books, you don't get rich off books. I'll just put it out there. You don't.
Nah.
But so with that being said, go directly to the author, go directly to the writer, and support them that way. And my second challenge is to our brother Joe. This what, December 2022?
Yes.
Let's go.
December 2023. We're gonna have Joe on here. We're gonna be talking about his new book. I'm gonna put it out.
Let's go.
I'm gonna put it out.
You know what? I'm up to the challenge. I'm gonna be hitting you brothers up, getting advice and and all that and inspiration. But yeah, I'm gonna do it. I want to do it.
He got it. He got it.
We got you, Joe.
We got you, brother. We got you, my
I
brother.
appreciate it.
Well, yeah, I appreciate these three good brothers that joined us today. I hope y'all got something for this. Like I said, if you know an aspiring young writer, please send it to them. Send this video to them. Give them the link to this YouTube. Go support these brothers. As Mike puts out his book, we'll definitely be publicizing that. Obviously we're gonna be publicizing Darrius, and when Joe puts his out, definitely his first book, we're gonna put it out there because we gotta support Black authors, Black writers, and making sure that brothers who are doing positive things for our community, they're supported and they're uplifted in what they're trying to do. So another episode of Conversate with Us Radio. Remember, conVersate stands for communicate, converse, and relate. Go to our Facebook, go to our Instagram, follow us, go to our YouTube, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, share the show. We'll holler at you next time. Peace.
Peace.